everyone, today we are making challah. So I've never made one of these videos before where I talk while I'm trying to cook because I'm not a good multitasker. I know that a lot of women are, but I have more of a male brain when it comes to multitasking. I'm not the worst at it, but I'm also not the best at it. So in the Jewish religion, we make blessings over everything. And I mean literally everything. And one of those things that we make blessings over for the purpose of sanctifying that specific thing is bread. Every Shabbat, we have 3 festive meals in which we typically have wine and meat, chicken, and then of course, we have to start the meal out with bread. If you've seen some of my old videos, you know that we typically wash our hands every morning when we wake up, but the other time we wash our hands is for bread. There is a biblical commandment that we should eat and be satiated. And the sages understand that this means when you eat bread. So, because it is a practice that we seek to spiritually elevate because it gives us our sustenance, we wash our hands before we eat bread. Now, historically speaking, bread was basically what people ate to sustain themselves. So it is understood from a historical context and from the sages that you are supposed to wash your hands for the sanctification of eating bread because it is a biblical commandment to eat and be satiated and to thank God for being satiated. This is off topic, but somebody once asked me why I crack my eggs with one hand, and I find that because I am multitasking a lot, which I guess I must not be that bad of a multitasker if I can apparently impress people with my single-handed egg cracking skills. But because I am a mom, I do multitask a lot. So therefore, I have learned how to crack eggs with just one hand. And that's what I do, even if I have 2 hands available. So one of the reasons that we wash our hands in this act, aside from what I explained already, is that it was customary in the Beit HaMikdash, which is the Jewish temple, which stood in Jerusalem. The high priest, in order to perform holy rituals, had to sanctify himself first through the cleansing of washing his hands. And therefore, it's something that all Jews do before they eat bread and in their everyday life whenever they wake up, because every opportunity to be alive is an opportunity to sanctify the holy name of God. Here's how it works on Shabbat. We do something called kiddush, which is the sanctification of wine. That occurs before we eat the challah. So typically what is done is the challah is brought to the table, it is covered out of respect, and then you make a kiddush, which is the sanctification of the wine, which has its own blessing and its own rituals. Then after that has been completed, everybody gets up, heads over to the sink, and starts washing their hands for challah. As far as I know, challah is more Ashkenazi in its origin, although in the past, bread was just used. Challah has become something that pretty much everybody universally uses because it has become so associated with Jewishness. Every time you eat bread on Shabbat, first of all, it is a mitzvah, especially once you thank God for it afterwards. One of the prerequisites for consuming the challah is that you have 2 loaves in order to put them together and then make the blessing. So when you look at the challahs, typically they're 3-strand braids, which adds up to 6. Now, some people have a custom to have 4 challahs at the meal, which typically I would say is what most people do, especially because you have a large family to feed. And that comes out to the number 12. And 12 was the number of showbreads in the Holy Temple, the Beit HaMikdash. So by having those 12 strands in total, it is an allusion to the holy days of the Beit HaMikdash when we were commanded to always make sure there were showbreads in the Holy Temple. There are some differences when you make the blessing over the bread, whether you are Ashkenazi or Sephardic. Typically with Ashkenazi Jews, they take the bread and they just say the blessing. They say, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. But with Sephardic Jews, we add a lot of stuff to it. You do this whole preemptive preamble before we actually make the blessing, and it has all sorts of Kabbalistic significance. My challah looks dry, so I'm gonna add more water. One of the things you always have to remember to do when you're kneading challah as a Jewish woman is take off your rings, because, well, obviously you don't want them to get dirty, but then also when the holiday of Passover comes around, you have to clean your house of chametz. Chametz is wheat or leavening agents, and therefore, once your rings get all dirty with that chametz, you have to really clean them, and it's very time consuming to like scrub into every single nook and cranny in a ring. It's very obnoxious. So that's one of the main reasons why I take off my jewelry, is to avoid having to think about yet another thing to clean before the holiday of Passover comes around. Now here's where we get our workout. And I think I added too much water, so now we have to add some more flour. Costco Italian seasoning. And I'm just gonna pour it on here. We're gonna knead this for 10 minutes, and then we're gonna let it rest. The time has come to take challah. So this is my challah. It has been resting for a few hours now. It is very large, and I'm going to show you what we do as far as making blessings. So first I'm going to take my Siddur. This is a Jewish prayer book. I'm going to open it to the page that has the special prayer we make when we separate a small piece of challah, which represents a small portion that was always cut off and given to the high priest when we had the holy temple. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidishon sotav v'tzivanu lahafrish challah teruma. Right here, I'm saying a prayer that comes after the initial blessing of separating the challah, and it is called the Yehi Ratzon. Now the fun part, we get to braid the challah. Challah dough is pretty sticky, but it's not supposed to be too sticky. Even though I messed up on this challah quite a few times, adding too much flour, then not enough, and having to add water, the dough ended up absolutely perfect. It felt like butter. Learning to braid challah, however, can be quite tricky. So I would recommend that you start with a 3-strand braid and then you can work your way up. Here I've done a variety of braids, some consisting of 6 strands, 5 strands, 4 strands, 3 strands, and 1 strand. And I'm topping it with sesame seeds and poppy seeds, which is my favorite topping. Then into the oven it goes, and the whole house smelled like heaven at this point. P.S. If you were wondering what these are my organic body creams that I hand make, only using organic ingredients and healing antioxidants like squalene, vitamin E oil, and more. These are some different scents I have, including an anti-aging blend with jasmine, frankincense, rose, and orange blossom. Not only that, but this cream contains high concentrates of bakuchiol and shea butter, as well as kokum butter and mango butter. Hope you enjoyed that, and thank you for joining me. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.